the big one that we're going is for Marco Polo, or now they're reclassified as Hugh Margali. So, one of those top tier bucket list pinnacle species, that worldwide, mountain hunters and sheep hunters kind of look at as that pinnacle species, that top tier animal. And then also we'll be combining that and hunting mid-Asian Ibex while we're there. External ballistics going from any massive elevation change like that is drastically going to change what your shoot to formula is from what you're actually getting in a range there. Absolutely no expert on sheep or Ibex, just don't have that time under my belt. But man, I've spent hours on YouTube and looked at probably every picture on Google, that's on the internet of Ibex and just trying to get that reference point as to what a shooter is, what a trophy is. It's a lot harder when you're in the moment and the adrenaline's flowing and trying to decide whether or not it's a shooter or not. Yeah, hopefully looking forward to sending you that in-reach message that says Big Ram down.
I am excited to announce that we have partnered with the Outdoorsmans in Fountain Hills, Arizona. They can provide all of your optics needs along with some of the best machine tripods and mounting accessories in the business. Swarovski, Zeiss, Leica, Leupold, binoculars, spotting scopes, rifle scopes, you name it. They can provide it, and at the industry's most competitive prices. They are offering our listeners an exclusive offer on all Outdoorsman's manufactured products such as packs, tripods, tripod heads, and other gear they manufacture. At checkout, type in the discount code RNA15, that is RNA15, and you'll receive a one-time 15% off your order. Please go to outdoorsmans.com and use the discount code today. Thank you for the support. All right, we are here with my good friend and colleague, Justin Shaffer. Justin is a buddy of mine that I met in New Zealand, actually, of all places. Interesting how we meet people all over the world, but I met Justin when I was over in the South Island, New Zealand, and Justin was there hunting tahr and stag with another mutual friend that we've all become friends with, Josh Harris, and just have stayed in contact and have been friends throughout the years. I've always appreciated and respected my friendship with Justin. He's just a solid guy. And tonight we're going to talk about, he's getting ready to head to Kyrgyzstan to do a combo hunt, which, as most of you know, I just came back from there. So we thought it would be kind of cool just to kind of compare notes, talk about, different gear, stuff that he's taken versus stuff that I was taking, and again, just talk about different experiences that we would have. So anyway, Justin, I want to welcome you to the show, man. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, talking about how we met, it just shows, one more example of just how small the world is, and then even smaller the industry that we're in. Yeah, for sure. And of course, you've been a long time KUIU guy, and of course now, retired from the military, which thank you for that, and went to work for KUIU as their senior program guide and outfitter director, which is pretty cool. And we've always had a relationship. You were able to convince me to jump over about a year and a half ago, and probably one of the better decisions I've made. So just excited to continue our friendship and our bond there. So yeah, for sure. Yeah, on the personal and professional side, both of them. Yeah. So anyway, you're probably pretty stoked, huh? You're getting ready to get on a plane and head to Kyrgyzstan, right? Yeah, for sure. This has been a long time in the making, counting down the days. We were supposed to go this time last year, and with all the travel restrictions and all the things that were put in place with COVID, it got bumped to this year. Yeah. And so we had a long time to prep and look forward to it and count down the days. Now, from what I understand, this is not your first trip to Kyrgyzstan. You've been there before, correct? Or you've been to the mid-Asian area? Yeah, no, I went to Kyrgyzstan 8 or 9 years ago and hunted mid-Asian Ibex there with a couple of buddies of mine. So This will be my second time going back there. Okay.
So you've obviously got a little bit of tribal knowledge and have some little intellect to know and kind of what to prepare and what to do. But, 8 or 9 years ago, things were probably a lot different. Gear was a lot different then, and things have come a long ways during that time. So,
yeah, no, a lot has changed from there. Still a lot of, samples to learn from and take home that'll apply to this trip that we learned from the first time going over. But yeah, definitely some updates to everything.
Sure. So your plan is to go over and do a combo. So maybe just kind of you can explain kind of the two species of animals that you're going to be going after.
Yeah. So the big one that we're going is for Marco Polo, or now they're reclassified as Hugh Margali. So one of those top tier bucket list pinnacle species. That worldwide mountain hunters and sheep hunters kind of look at as that pinnacle species, that top tier animal. And then also we'll be combining that and hunting mid-Asian Ibex while we're there.
Okay. Very cool. So combo Marco and the Hugh Margali along with Ibex. That's going to be awesome. And just thinking back to my trip, we were in an area that didn't have the Marco Polo sheep. Actually, they weren't far from the region that we were in, but we were in an area that had just super high quality, high density Ibex, which made our trip pretty awesome. Would have been cool to see some sheep while we were there, but didn't have that opportunity. But from what I understand, and you may know more, there are only certain areas within Kyrgyzstan that have both. Now, Ibex are pretty prolific across most of the country, but there's only certain places that have the Marco Polo sheep. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. The Hugh Margali and Marco Polo, Kyrgyzstan is one of the places that they're the most prolific in, but they're definitely more in abundance along that southern, southeastern border along China there.
Okay.
So those mountain regions there, we're heading to the Narn area versus the Issyk-Kul, where we hunted Ibex last time. So we'll be in a little bit different part of the country from where we were on the first trip.
Okay. Yeah, so we were in Issyk-Kul. That was where we kind of basically hunted most of our area into that kind of that southeastern portion, just south of basically flew into Bishkek and drove, 12 hours, which is kind of it sounds like the standard, right? It's Bishkek is kind of the one hub for flying into, and then from there, I think we went near, it was like Karakul Lake. It was a really large lake that we passed by. And then south of there, Issyk-Kul Lake, it might have been. And then
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Super popular lake for recreating. One of their bigger tourist spots there in Kyrgyzstan.
Yeah. Yeah. So in terms of your travel plans, again, assuming you guys go through Bishkek, and then kind of what direction will you guys be going?
Yeah. So there's a group of 4 of us and a cameraman, so 5 total. And we're all going to meet up in Chicago, fly through Istanbul, Turkey, which is pretty common, and then down to Bishkek, and then anywhere from a 10 to 12-hour drive, depending on road conditions, to get to base camp. And then, from what I understand, we'll be hunting Marco Polo first, and that'll be anywhere from a 5 to 6 hour horseback ride from base camp. Hopefully, we get those knocked down early and have enough time to go chase Ibex, and then we'll move to a different region from there, from the same base camp, but it's anywhere from 8 to 10 hours by horseback into Ibex country. But we're able to hunt both species from the same base camp.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So it sounds like it'd be a kind of a similar type terrain, similar type hunt that we just came back from. One of the things that's interesting about hunting in Kyrgyzstan, and something that most may or may not understand, but it's the altitude. And for most of us, you're in Alaska, so, elevation is, you can get some pretty good relief where you're at. Me being down here at basically sea level, it's a little different. But when you get into Kyrgyzstan, it's incredible because the valleys are just beautiful. And then you look up and you have these just massive, huge skyscraper mountains all around you. And, and you're really getting into elevations of, 10 to 12 to 13,000 feet. Are there any precautions that you take for altitude or things that you do to kind of prepare yourself for that?
Yeah, for sure. There's only so many things you do, and it's funny that you talk about, the elevation. I was reading just today, and it said something like 70% of the country is above 8,000 feet.
Wow.
Which is just kind of crazy to put into perspective. But yeah, base camp where we're heading into the closest village is a little over 10K. And then most of the hunting we'll be anywhere from that 12 to 14,000 foot range, which is just, those are crazy numbers. And you talk about me being here in Alaska. I live in Anchorage, and, people associate Alaska with the mountains, but being here in Anchorage, I'm only at 400 feet above sea level.
Sure.
So I'll have, a lot of altitude being gained there as well. So, and, with the body, and you break down the science of it, there's only so much you can do. They say that it takes roughly 30 days for the body to properly acclimate, to altitude. You just don't have those type of days on the trip. So, there's a few things you can do that'll help. One being the best shape that you can so that your body performs, at its best. Being hydrated is one of those super critical things that, the better hydrated you are, the better your body's going to function again. Mm-hmm. And then there's meds that you can take. One of the ones that I'm going to be taking with me, or the primary one that I'm taking with me, is the Wilderness Athlete. And what that does is it just helps the body to increase blood flow. It helps boost oxygen delivery and the saturation. It helps you do that rapid altitude adaptation that, you wouldn't normally be able to do because you don't have the time frame to do it. So
yeah, for sure.
The best shape you can, stay hydrated, and then, whatever you can do to help boost your oxygen saturation.
Yeah, and that progression you talked about is exactly kind of the progression that I used. I mean, part of my training is obviously trying to stay in good shape, year round. I just come off, my hunt in BC, so I'd had a 10-day, backpack hunt and literally turned right around and did that hunt. So from a kind of my body having a pack on leg standpoint was super strong, but when you get to that elevation, and I was only in 6,000 to 7,000 feet in BC, so we were almost double that in Kyrgyzstan. I did some of the same stuff. The Wilderness Athlete altitude. That's some really good stuff, and I started taking that toward the tail end of my BC hunt, and I didn't have any issues with altitude when we. Got to Kyrgyzstan. We did the long drive. We got to our base camp. They acclimated us a day. The next day we rode up on horses, got to our spike base on the mountain. We were acclimated there a day, and then we started hunting the following day. And none of us really had any issues. Our camera guy got a little bit sick that night. He was having headaches, but generally I would say for the rapid acclimation that we could do. In a couple days, we were pretty well acclimated, at least from that standpoint. Now, the one
as much as you could be.
Yeah, exactly. The one tough thing is when you start hiking and getting up in that elevation, your lungs definitely feel it, but at least you're not getting the headaches and the other stuff like you were talking about. And and hydration, I can't say, that's so important to be hydrated when you're on the mountain like that. Yep.
Yeah, one of those other supplements that I take that, I use on every hunt I go on, no matter what I'm hunting, is Hydrate and Recover. Berry Blast, one, I just like the taste of it. And, if you can make something taste better, you tend to drink more. So it just one of those tools that helps you to stay hydrated better. So,
yep. So you said on your hunt, sounded like you guys will do your Hugh Margali Marco hunt first. And then you said you're going to take roughly about an 8-hour horseback ride back in to get to Ibex. So horses will be a part of your guys' hunt on this trip?
Yeah, for sure. Both areas that we're accessing for Marcos and for Ibex will be via horseback. So, 90% of the travel, from what I understand, will be on horseback, getting to those areas to hunt both of the species.
Okay. Yeah, so just a little interesting. We had horses on our hunt, and again, I think there's always goods and bads. With horses. I mean, these are pretty well trained, pretty well broke horses. But, they have limitations too. And there's a lot of things that I like to do where I'm just kind of on my own feet a lot of times. But I will say having the horses enables you to bring gear and probably stuff that you would probably second guess on a backpack hunt, right? Well, what I mean?
Oh, yeah, for sure. It definitely changes the mindset on what you can take. You don't necessarily have to, count every single ounce like you're doing on a backpack sheep hunt, where you're carrying all that weight on your back for the duration of the time that you're out there. You can get away with a little bit more. You can't get crazy. It's still, it's a horse. It's not the bed of a truck.
Yeah.
So you do have limitations, but it definitely gives you that ability to pack a few more luxury items, or something that, you might want to take on your backpack sheep hunt, but you don't because of the weight.
For sure.
So yeah, it gives you a little bit more flexibility to be able to take more gear and take different types of gear that you wouldn't normally if you were having to carry all that on your own back.
Yep. Yeah, I know you and I were kind of chit-chatting back and forth a few weeks ago about trekking poles and a few other things. And I told you, I had mine in my pack, but I don't think I ever used them because a fair portion of the time, if we weren't on horses, we were in just high scree and shale. And for me, it's hard for me to use trekking poles on that stuff because I'm typically I put gloves on my hands and try to use my hands, versus using trekking poles. But again, those are one of those creature comforts that, I think in a backpack hunt, they're a no-brainer, but a hunt like this, they really don't add a lot of weight and be something that'd be easy to throw in your pack. So.
Yeah. And for me, all the mountain hunting that I do, it's funny. I've had this conversation with Austin Atkinson from Huntin' Full and I steal the line that he uses that he would have been dead, long ago if it wasn't for trekking poles, going up the mountain and then especially coming off the mountain under load.
Yeah.
It's so many times that those trekking poles are absolutely critical. River crossings are another one, they're just, it's a great tool to have. And it's one of those must-have items for me when I hit the mountains.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So you're going to be heading out here soon. So October, we were there in September, and I would say weather was pretty mild. But we were on Kyrgyzstan where we were hunting is a very similar parallel to what we're on here. So the September hunting here kind of reminded me of September fall elk hunting in the States, right? Where it's 50s and 60s during the day. The lows would get down, in the 30s probably at the coolest, but 40s for general. So it made it pretty easy for kind of gear and what we were going to bring. But October, I've actually seen some of my guides that I hunted with. They've sent me videos and shown that they've actually gotten some snow already up there. So is the weather conducive to more of an October type hunt here? Or is it going to be colder, or what kind are you expecting for weather-wise?
Yeah, no, so it's definitely going to be cold, and like you said, it's kind of on parallel with where we're at. In October, there is that transition time, especially in the mountains, where you could have that good weather where it's 30 to 40 and sunny and clear, or you could be below zero in a blizzard. And that's kind of been one of those challenges with us, with baggage limitations with the airline, and then, again, what we can take in and out of the field on horseback. Trying to decide with our layering system what exactly we're taking. Mm-hmm. So we've got a wider temperature span that we've got to prepare for. Somewhere in that 0 to 40 range is kind of where we're at, which is a huge spectrum. When it comes to layering. So yeah, it's kind of been a challenge. The forecast now, obviously, we leave this Friday, and things change fast, especially in mountain areas. But right now, the weather conditions look really good for us. The nearest village that's there is right around 8,000 feet, and it's showing highs in the upper 40s and lows in the upper 30s.
Okay.
You probably take 10 degrees off of that once you get at elevation, and the weather forecast looks really good for us. So we're kind of keeping our fingers crossed, hoping that we're able to get in and out of there without getting caught in any of those big mountain storms.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good. And one of the things that our guys were telling us about is obviously as the winter kind of, blows in later in the year into November, those Ibex kind of get pulled out of the higher mountains where they come lower but they're also their capes and their hides, they start to build that winter hide, which they're a lot prettier. But, our experience in September they were high and they were in huge bands. We were seeing bands 30 to 40, solid billies. And the hard part is you're looking at 30 or 40 of them trying to figure out, okay, which one do I want to shoot? Because they all look big, right?
Yep.
And field judging, Ibex is kind of a interesting conversation because, I would by no means consider myself an expert, but after about a couple days of really seeing them and spending time behind the glass looking at them, you can really start to break down a good quality billy versus, probably a mid-grade billy. And I'm assuming, Marco Polo sheep are probably similar. You've done a ton of sheep hunting in your life, but you probably have an idea of kind of what you're looking for or would be field judging looking for.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely no expert on sheep or Ibex, just don't have that time under my belt. But man, I've spent hours on YouTube and looked at probably every picture on Google, that's on the internet of Ibex and just trying to get that reference point as to what a shooter is, what a trophy is. And then, something that we want to pass on. So got a pretty good idea, of what we're looking for, but it's a lot harder when you're in the moment and the adrenaline's flowing and trying to decide whether or not it's a shooter or not.
Yeah, and on that note, it's interesting because you talk about adrenaline in the moment, and there actually becomes a point where there's a bit of a pressure situation because what we found was our guides they don't speak English, right? So you're
shoot.
Yeah, exactly. Shoot and big. So you're like, okay, but they all look big, right? And you got this band of, in our case, the first band that Andy shot at, there was over 40 billies in there. And I'm looking at all. Yeah, I'm looking at all of them thinking, okay, they all look good. And they're all saying, big, Ibex, shoot. So you really have to, what we found worked well was having, me with Andy or Andy with me, vice versa. And we were spotting for each other and giving each other ranges. And what's interesting is you kind of phase out the guides as they're talking to you and you hear your buddy who actually speaks English, right? And tells you, hey, there's a big one on the left, or hey, the third one in from the right is a shooter and he's at, 450 yards. And we were doing that for each other. And that really helped because it's hard trying to work through the language barrier with the guides. It's a challenge.
Yeah, went through that firsthand the last time I was there. And luckily for us with the group that we have and the dynamic on how it's going to work with the Marco Polos up front is we'll be hunting in pairs.
Okay.
So like I said, it's, critical to have that buddy that's there that's a little bit cooler in the moment that, knowing he's not pulling the trigger, he can help you read wind, give you ranges, help you sort through, where you've got that narrowed field of vision through your scope or, just being in that moment. It's nice to have that partner there.
Absolutely. And then, so I saw that you'd been sighting or you've been shooting a rifle, so you're planning to take a firearm then on this hunt?
Yeah, so for sure. I mean, just the amount of time that we have in country, the amount of money spent that's gone into it. This is a huge financial investment for me.
Yeah.
And then along with that, we're filming this hunt for Kuyu, so we really want to up the odds on being able to put together a quality film. And being able to put some animals down in it. So yeah, not even taking a bow on this trip. I'm taking my GA Precision 6.5 and my buddy Neil at Hornady sent me a bunch of ammo earlier in the year. So every time that I've had a chance to get to the range, I've been putting rounds down range.
Okay.
Getting ready for this hunt, just to make sure that all my gear's dialed in and that the fundamentals are there, so that when it comes time, all that muscle memory's in place and. I can pull the trigger, let it fly, and know that it's going to hit where I'm aiming. Yeah,
for sure. And speaking for kind of the Ibex hunt, I mean, one thing we identified real quick is the guides move really fast. I mean, they're incredible how much country they can cover. They walk through that shale like it's nothing. So keeping up to them is, you talk about that physical. Not only the physical toughness, the mental toughness of those hunts, but physically being able to keep up. But I will say, they will get you pretty dang close for the Ibex, and again, they live in that country. That's what they do.
That's their backyard.
Trust their guide, right? Trust your guide. It's incredible how good they are.
Yeah, and as far as like, I pride myself on being one of those guys that can glass. But those guys will put you to shame, won't they?
Oh my gosh. I mean, we'll be sitting there, riding horses and they'll stop and look up and they'll see them with their naked eye and then they'll put their glass up, then we get off the horses and then from there we kind of go in on foot. But that was kind of the interesting thing is, they wanted to a lot of times take us right up to them in horses. And I was more of I want to get off the horse and spot and stalk to the best ability that we can. And we kind of got that kind of that general process, with our guides, knowing that was kind of the method and take that we wanted to hunt. So they were good with that. And we probably walked a little more, but we also, we got into, I think, better quality Ibex and we weren't spooking them nearly as much as we would have been on, on the horses.
Not riding right up onto them. That was our experience too, is that, those guys, they really didn't want to get off horseback. They wanted to ride up to the very point where you got off of it and shot.
Yeah. So.
Which, like you just, isn't my style of hunting. So.
Correct. Well, cool. So, thinking about, I guess, gear. So we talked a little bit about the weather and some of the stuff, and you were talking about as we were just jumping on. So you're going to bring a lot of your own food. And my recommendation would be is do that. I mean, we brought our own food. Now they have food and the guides have food, but one of the things we kind of noticed was it was a lot of noodles, a lot of, high carb type stuff, which isn't bad up there, but you do need a little bit of protein mixed in there. So, having your own meals and snacks, I think, is important. And again, with having horses, you can do that. You can bring up your own food. So.
Yeah, and that was one of those things that I drew from the experience being there the first time is the food. One, there wasn't a lot of it, and two, it wasn't very good. So, being able to put together my own meal plans, my own meal kit for this trip, definitely going to help, I think, be able to put a lot more fuel and energy into the body.
For sure.
Get a lot more back out of it. So,
yeah, and the thing you don't realize, even at that elevation, you're burning calories all the time, whether you're cold and you're shivering or whether you're standing there or whether you're, walking over to the creek to fill up your water bottle. I mean, you're continually burning calories up there. And when you talk about, how your body perfuses oxygen and, to your extremities, I mean, all that is so key and vital up there because it's a totally different world when you get up there. And what's interesting about getting up to those elevations is also how your rifle performs too. And it was interesting on the first hunt that we did, Andy was the first one out of the gate, and I actually wasn't right there with him. He was with the guides, and he did basically a line of sight yardage with his rangefinder, and he'd identified, there was about a 10-degree angle there, and he shot probably 2 feet over the back of that Ibex, and he had
super common.
Yeah, he had no idea or concept for drag, and obviously the angle and the compensation and corrections on that rifle, and I had to help him with some of that. But it was interesting how that rifle shot differently at elevation.
Yeah, no, I mean, the external ballistics going from any massive elevation change like that is drastically going to change what your shoot-to formula is from what you're actually getting in a range there. That's why it's important to have, some of the tools of the trade, like the onboard ballistic computers and the Kestrel wind meters. And we're taking Swarovski range TA binos, and they've got onboard ballistic computers that do all those calculations for you. They take in the barometric pressure, the altitude, the angle, and they give you true shoot-to formulas where you're not having to try and figure out all that math in your head, because it's massively different, coming from sea level to 12, 13, 14,000 feet. Your bullet does a lot of different things than what you're used to.
Yeah, and that's good to hear that. I mean, I was going to ask you kind of about optics and what you guys were bringing, but having dope charts and all that, kind of the old version to do it. I mean, that's doable, but again, the problem is that having to do a lot of that stuff, when you got an Ibex standing there at 400 yards is tough. So having optics that will do a lot of that for you. So I run the Leica Geovids, the 3200.coms, and they basically do the same thing, right? And I was able to Bluetooth my phone to my optics, and we put in all of Andy's all the bullets, the ballistic coefficient, the velocity, put all that stuff in. The environmentals pull in through the Kestrel, which is Bluetooth. It was incredible how that thing would read out, and it was giving us yardages that were spot on after the first time he had missed. So that it's critical at those elevations to make sure you have that down.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially again when you're putting that type of time and financial investment into these international trips, you want to have the best equipment possible to help, make your trip successful, and having that upgrades in your optics and, that type of technology is huge.
Yeah.
Gives you a huge benefit, huge advantage going into it.
And speaking of optics, so sounds like you guys are dialed on the binos. Are you guys bringing spotting scopes in? Is that a plan with tripods?
Yeah, we are for sure. Again, we've got 9 days on the ground, so we've got a lot of time to be able to sort through some animals, especially if we got any weather. And for me, having that big spotting scope, I'm taking a Swarovski ATX 95, which is 25 to 75 power. Give me that ability to be able to pick through and make sure I'm shooting the type of animal that I want to shoot, being able to see it through, that bigger optics.
Good. And again, that'd be a huge recommendation is, to the best you can, bring the optics that you can. The guides don't have very great optics. They got 10 by 42 binoculars. They don't have spotting scopes. And now again, they can judge and see, and they do pretty well. But once you put them underneath, like I brought a Swarovski 85 with me, and once you put them under that, they could really start picking apart, especially the Ibex, to where, it's a difference of looking at them through a 10 by 42 binocular and an 85 millimeter objective on a, Swarovski BTX spotting scope. It's a big difference. And
yeah,
you
for
can
sure. And
really
like you said, when
in.
you're sorting through a group of 40 animals, you're there. You want to take the biggest one you can,
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. So that's good to hear you guys are bringing optics. And one thing I'll say is those guides, they'll want to hog your optics. They'll want to look through your spotting scope. They'll want to take pictures through your spotting scope. It's pretty funny because they just don't have stuff like that there,
Nope. Yeah, that was one of the things I saw the first time. The first time I went, I had a set of Leica GeoVid 10 by 42s, and both of our guides had like World War II era Russian binoculars. I mean, just old as dirt. And the first time they looked through my binoculars, it was like, an awakening to them. And every time we'd stop, the first thing they'd do is they'd walk up to me and stick their hand up, to get my binoculars for me. So this trip around, so I'm taking my 10 by 42 EL ranges, and then I'm also taking my 15 by 56s.
Okay.
So one, to be able to have the bigger glass to be able to look through, and then, depending on what our guides have for optics, being able to give them better quality optics so that I'm not having to hand my binoculars to them every time we stop.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I brought 10s, I brought my 15s, and they would typically in the evenings, if we were back to base camp or whatever, they would go ride, right before dark, and I would typically kick them a pair of my binoculars, and they would go, and typically every time they come back, they would find, billies that we were going to hunt the next morning. So it's always reassuring. Now, the interesting thing about our hunt, last year there was no hunting. The year prior, this concession had just been bought out, and they had very limited hunting there. So really, these animals hadn't been hunted in a few years, and we were the first group in. So I mean, we were seeing Ibex that really hadn't been hunted in 2 to 3 years, and was that part of the reason the quality was better? And maybe they were in bigger bands, possibly, but I think overall, a lot of hunting didn't happen last year, so there is the potential for higher quality this year going into a lot of these international hunts. Yeah,
for sure, I agree, and gave you the chance to get the pick of the litter, and man, you shot an absolute giant. Yeah. So we, Andy and I, we just had a heck of a trip. We both shot 2, and on the last day, I was able to get in on that giant that I shot. He was just under 50. He's like 49 and change, 125 centimeters. Yeah, 50. We hadn't talked since you left for Canada, other than text. So I knew he was pushing it, but I thought he'd go over. That thing is a monster. Yeah. No, it was just one of those things when, we spotted him. Andy had shot his second one, and we actually spotted him and 2 others, kind of working towards where we were. So we got Andy's last one taken care of, and then we hunted those 3, and I was able to make the shot. It was a 450-yard shot, a moving shot, as he was moving away from us, and just dumped him. And good way to end the trip, and was pretty happy with that. Yeah. So I mean, the first Billy you shot was really nice, but that second one's an absolute no-brainer. That's one you don't have to look through the spotting scope to know that it's a giant.
Exactly, and and that's that was the one we were obviously looking for the whole trip, and we saw one other one of that quality, and didn't get an opportunity to get on them, but hopefully you guys will have opportunities at those type of quality Ibex. And they say the best Ibex in the world, live in Kyrgyzstan, and based on our experience, there were just some absolute giants that we saw. And even we saw some deadheads that were giant deadheads that, whether it was from wolves or snow leopards or any predators or what have you, that we just saw a ton of deadheads too that were in that area. So had a pretty good idea. We were definitely in a good area.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it. No shortage of numbers for you guys.
Yep.
Which obviously, just helps to make it a better trip. You travel all that way, and, last thing you want to do is get there and spend a week, digging through the dirt, turning up single digits. It's nice to be able to see lots of animals and pick through them and not feel rushed or pressured like you have to shoot the first decent one that you find.
Yeah. Yeah, and they continually put us on, like I said, good bands, good billies, and and again, it was kind of incumbent upon us to sort through them and figure out which one to shoot. But again, I think, and that's one thing that, as you guys go and as you hunt in pairs, it'll just be important. Whoever your pair is, just have him be that guy under the glass, looking at all of them, right? Because like you said, your field of view and the scope's going to be different than what he's going to be able to look at, and really trust what they. But obviously, if there's a giant and it's it's in your focal plane, then you're going to dump it. But it's just it is. That was the one thing that we found real quick was it gets really stressful and a bit of high pressure once you get into a band and you're trying to figure out which one you want to shoot. But hopefully, like I say, you guys don't fall into that trap. But one of the things we did do, just kind of a little thing that we did, is when we were down in camp, we did ask. So the owner was there, and he spoke semi-fluent English, and we asked him to introduce us to our guides when we got there, so we knew who they were. And then we also talked to them about kind of the type of hunting that we wanted to do, right? We were more of a kind of get off the horses and try to, spot and stalk, because they're not Western hunters, right? They don't do a lot of that. I mean, they do glass, but that's really not a key part of what they do. So again, we kind of asked, who our guides were, and kind of did just a little introduction, again, and just talked to them about, we'd like to stop the horses. We'd like to walk up to the animals as, the best that we can, type of thing. So just a little, maybe a tip when you guys get in there, if there is someone that speaks English or at least can translate, it's a good person to kind of help you guys, meet your guides and make sure they understand kind of what your guys' expectations are.
Yeah, for sure. So, and I know most of these types of hunts, even in these third world countries, the guides are super accommodating, and they're there to work for you and want to give you the best hunt possible. You just got to relay that information of what your expectations are, what you're looking for. Yep.
No, absolutely. And they are. And I'll tell you, those guys they are machines, man. And as you probably know, because you've done this hunt, but it's pretty incredible. I was staying on their heels pretty good, because I was really interested in trying to stay up with them to make sure that, wherever they were seeing, where they were at, if there was an opportunity, that we were right there. And a lot of times, Andy and our camera guy had to take horses because they couldn't keep up with those guys, because they were just freaking flying up the mountain. But
and that's the way it was. We were there before. When we picked up our guides, their village was just over 11K.
Wow.
So living and growing up in that, their whole life, they're above tree line, and their blood just saturates different than ours. And those guys, in old hand-me-down clothes and shoes, and
I know, no
gloves, and just can race up and down those mountains like it's nothing. Where you get off your horse, walk 10 feet, and you're huffing and puffing already. Yeah.
Well, that was one of the things I had talked to when I was kind of working the logistics with our outfitter. I said, hey, I was going to get a couple, KUIU items to bring them and stuff. And I said, is that like a good tip if we brought, like some gear to leave them or whatever? And he goes, they don't take it. They won't take any of the stuff that you guys have. He said, you can bring it and you can leave it with them. They'll turn around and sell it. I was like, really? What's interesting is when we went there, they all had their own style of camo that they use. And it was like, I'm sure it wasn't like cotton-based stuff, but it didn't look like great quality stuff. But they wore that stuff day in and day out. And they had a jacket, basically like one layer, and then they had their pants and maybe a layer under that, and that was it. And they just would go on that stuff. None of them had any of the stuff that, we typically see and use here in the States. So I did find that interesting.
Technical fabrics. Yeah. No, and you see a lot of variation between the outfitters and the guides and the outfits in regards to what the guides have for gear, whether it's optics or clothes. When we went the first time, neither one of our guides had any type of beanie caps or even gloves.
Wow.
And we got caught in a huge snowstorm. We rode almost 10 hours on horseback in this blizzard, just getting pounded in the face. And luckily for us, we had extra beanie caps, extra gloves that, we took off and gave to our guides because they didn't have any. It's amazing. But, at the same time, they, never complained, always hustling, just working their tails off, just, a different kind of person.
Yeah. Two of our guides. So we had 4 guides. Well, we had 4 total guides. I think 2 were kind of the guides. We had a Wrangler and then kind of a Packer, but 2 of them wore muck boots, literally irrigation rubber muck boots. And they would run up and down those mountains like it was nothing in those.
Yeah, like it was nothing, yep.
And it was just interesting. One of them, he would take jeans that were like almost starch type jeans, like from like the calf down, and they were like cut. So it was probably like a 10 to 12 inch like kind of sleeve of jeans. And he would rub those, and then he would put them on, and he would put them around his ankles and like wedge them in with his socks, and then he'd put his muck boots on, and that's what he wore. And it was incredible to me because I brought Kenetrex, and my Ran got completely tore up from the scree and the shale. And those rubber boots, they don't even cut. They don't tear anything. It's incredible how they do that.
Yep.
So
no, it's just funny how, you know, you go to different regions of the world, and, you know, we talked about food already, but just seeing how the people in that area and how they adapt to what they have available to them and how they make it work.
Yep. No, it's pretty cool, and I tell you that, and you've traveled and you've done a lot of international hunting, but I think the coolest part is just kind of just immersing yourself in their culture and the things that they do. And the first few days we were trying to, you know, try to understand, and we were communicating with them, but you have to use a lot of, you know, your sign language and, you know, Google Translate. Exactly. Google Translate on your phone's pretty good to have. But anyway, as we got to like day 4 and day 5, you know, we were initially like kind of eating our dinner by ourselves, but by the time we were getting to the tail end of the hunt, we were together every night. We would sit around the little jet boil things they had, and they would prepare hot water for us, and we were eating our meals, and they would cook their own. But we were having conversations where we were trying to, you know, talk about things that we could commonly understand, you know, and it just got fun. It really got fun towards the tail end of the hunt. And, you know, I'd recommend trying to build that relationship up front, you know, with your guides or whatever, because it does make the experience a lot better. Yeah,
no, for sure. Definitely adds to the experience, just makes things easier.
Yeah, so just a couple other things. I just made a few notes and things to think about, not only for you, but others, and also anyone that may listen to this. But one of the things that, as you know, as you travel internationally, you know, with rifles and firearms, you know, you want to make sure you have, you know, all your paperwork up ahead. You got your customs forms, the 4457. But the other key thing is important is making sure that you have an ammo case that's lockable, and it's not in the same container as your rifle. And I'm sure you know that, but we ran into a little bit of an issue with that because Andy had just had his Gunworks rifle basically sent to him with 100 rounds of load development in it, and all the rounds were inside the case that the rifle came in. And we're getting ready to check into LAX, and they're like, no, this has to be locked in a separate bag. So we were fortunate to get the ammunition in another one of his checked bags, which then we locked up. But coming back from Bishkek was a little bit different story. You know, the other issue is that he was actually only permitted to take so much ammunition and brought more in than what was allocated. So they ended up taking some of his ammo in Bishkek. But it just goes to show you want to make sure everything's tight, right? All your paperwork, everything that you've got, you know, down on all of your forms, everything that the outfitters are working with you on, just make sure all that stuff is triple checked. And, you know, traveling now with COVID and all that, it kind of changes the game a little bit. So I'm assuming you guys probably have to get tests and all that to fly and all that. So just things that are, you know, normally wouldn't be an issue, but things we have to do now to travel. So.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things that goes back into your prior planning and preparation, you know, that goes into the hunt. Again, you've got all this time and financial investment into the trip. You got to do your homework, you know, because every country is different. Every airline is different, you know, as far as the different nuances of what's allowed, what's not allowed. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a lot different than traveling within the U.S. And you've really got to do your homework to make sure that you don't get caught, you know, in that moment where you don't have the ability or the time to fix it, you know, and it could be a hunt ender and you're stuck at the airport being turned around by customs, you know, because you had the wrong form, or like you talked about, ammunition is a big one. You know, we don't think about that traveling where, you know, the ammo is thrown in the box and thrown in the gun case, where, like you said, you've got to have a separate lockable container that's in your other checked bag, you know, so it's a lot of things that can go into these types of hunts, and you really got to do your homework in them. Or on them.
Absolutely. And on the tail end of your hunt, what you'll find coming back is you want to give yourself, you know, so let's say you guys get done in 6-7 days. And you want to give yourself at least a day for all the documents, because all the CITES documents they have to put together. So all that stuff has to happen. And then also, bringing home and flying back with, the horns and the capes and the hides and the skulls. What our outfit did, and they did a really nice job of it, is we literally came off the mountain, and the next day we ended up actually heading back to Bishkek. But that through the night, they boiled our skulls, they bleached them, did all the peroxide, got the skulls completely clean, had all the documentation in the process of being worked, and we went in the following day, did all the signatures, got all the information, and got everything taken care of ahead of time. So we were able to basically pack all our stuff in our check bags, which we brought. I think I brought an extra 5,500 in a 9,000 Taku bag, and ended up, putting all my stuff in there, and flew home no problem with them.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it if you can, financially and timing wise, is if you can bring your trophies back as checked luggage. But like you talked about, there's a lot of stuff that can go into that, especially clearing customs.
Yep.
Back on the U.S. side, you've got to have all the documentation from the country you're leaving, and then you've got to have all your documentation when you arrive into the U.S. And you got one thing that's off, and you could take that hunt of a lifetime and now have your trophy seized and, potentially destroyed off of one document. So yeah, there's a lot of prep work and a lot of planning that goes into it.
Yep. Yeah, and I think the key was the things that they were more critical about is, we had all of our documentation, but just ensuring that the hides were dry and clean, which they were, and they salted them. Even when we were on the mountain, they took good care of our not only the meat but also the horns and the hides. And then when we got into LAX, so we flew very similar transit as you did, Bishkek, Istanbul, back, and we flew through LA. So when we got into LAX, of course, got off the plane and were routed to the customs. There's an app that you can use on your phone that allows you to do a lot of the pre-work while you're actually waiting in line. And then that kind of clears you through kind of the customs piece. And then there's the kind of the fish and game piece that you have to clear. So when you go through that checklist and you say, yeah, I've got animals in my check bags, that routes you to that group.
Yep.
And they basically wait for you at baggage claim. They no, hey, are you the one hunting? You're like, yep. Okay, so they get your bags, and they just go through stuff real briefly, take a look at it, look at the CITES forms, and we didn't have any problems in LA, and they had to clear the rifle too, but we ended up, it was probably a 20 to 30 minute ordeal, and we were done. So that part was nice, but I know that it cannot always go that smooth, so having your documentation order is really important. So
yeah, no, for sure. And I've hunted all over the world and come back through different ports of entry, LAX, San Francisco, Chicago, and, every situation tends to be different, and you've got to allow that time to get through customs, make sure that you're not missing that next flight going out.
Yep, absolutely. But to that point, if you can take them home with you, that saves you a shipping cost or, what have you, because you do a lot of your own taxidermy, so I'm assuming you're going to want to take your stuff and do it yourself, I'd assume.
Yep. Yeah, no, for sure. Right now, we're still waiting on our import permits. There's one more piece of paperwork that's critical to get in our dolly back in, and we still haven't gotten that import documentation yet. So as of right now, unfortunately, we're looking at leaving anything to do trophy-wise with the Marcos, but fully planning on bringing the Ibex back with us.
Okay. Well, cool. Just a couple other kind of travel tips. So, when we came back from camp, we stayed in Bishkek a couple days because we ended up actually getting our hunt done a day early, and they took us into Bishkek. We ended up getting, a pretty nice hotel, like Sheraton Hotel downtown, which was super nice to kind of have a nice place to just kind of crash and shower. We also had the ability to have traveling nurses come to our room to do our COVID tests. So just just something to remember on the back end of your trip. I know a lot of guys will stay at the Hyatt too, which is again kind of an Americanized type of hotel. but really nice. And again, it's just kind of nice to have a location that you come back to. And there's a lot of obviously restaurants in Bishkek and a lot of culture there that you can go take in. It's obviously not the reason that you go there, but logistically, you just want to make sure to give yourself a little bit of time on the back end to make sure all your documents and all the testing and stuff that you have to do gets done. And then when we got to the airport, we actually had it was actually one of our outfitters, but he was kind of our tour guide too. He went in there with us and helped us clear all the customs and kind of help translate with the Kyrgyz customs agents, which I'll tell you, that was super helpful because one,
for sure.
We don't speak their language, and two, they could translate to us and vice versa. And having a person there, if possible, to do that, it was a huge lifesaver.
Yep. Yeah. It just makes the transition easier going in and out of there.
Yep. Absolutely. And so anyway, those were just a few things that, things that I think, I kind of just jotted down that were important. The hunting is the hunting, right? And you're seasoned and you guys are prepared and we'll be ready for that. It's just kind of all the logistics, going, coming. People ask me, what was it like traveling to, mid-Asia? You got, Afghanistan just to the south. And quite honestly, I didn't feel any security threats or concerns the whole time. And yep. Had a lot of people asking me, are you second guessing going? And I'm like, no, I'm not. I mean, I feel perfectly confident, and there were no issues. And that's not to say that nothing, something could happen, but I felt very safe in the country. And like I said, we spent a couple days kind of touring around Bishkek and didn't feel at all ever concerned about personal security there. So it was really safe from our standpoint.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where there's a stigma attached to any country with a stan, on the back end of it. But, Kyrgyzstan is one of those countries that's been a U.S. ally for a long, long time. And I think a lot of people don't realize that, the airport there in Bishkek, the international airport, we have a huge air base, military air base there, and we've been partners with the Kyrgyz for a long, long time. And it's one of those countries that, is super safe. You'd be in more trouble in a lot of U.S. big cities if you wander in the wrong part of town than you would be in Bishkek.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the people there were super nice, super accommodating. Yep. The restaurants, everything, just really cool. Like I said, I've always enjoyed when I travel, kind of, like I say, immersing myself in the cultures, eating their foods, drinking their drinks and all that. And it's just kind of a part of the experience I think is fun. And it's not obviously a place that we got to stay very long, but it was a pretty neat experience the time we were there. So. Yep.
Yeah, one of those things you just got to take in while you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, man, this is pretty exciting. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see how you guys do. We could probably sit and talk, gear for an hour, but I mean...
Oh, easily, yeah.
But overall, I think, you're pretty well prepared, and I know how you are with hunts and trips. You're probably like me. I had my stuff stashed out for 2 months prior to going on that hunt.
Yep.
Okay, do I need this? Do I not need this? And... my situation was a little different because I literally, was in BC, flew home for 3 days, and then turned around and flew to Kyrgyzstan. So I kind of had to have all my stuff laid out for both trips.
Have your ducks in a row before you left.
Yeah, exactly. So there was a lot of planning and preparation for both trips. But super, super stoked I went on that trip, and I was actually second guessing going after my BC hunt. And I'm so glad I went because the experience was just awesome, and we just had a great time. So.
Yep. Yeah, it couldn't have been with a better person either. And a good dude.
Yeah, no, we had a good time, and I'm assuming your group of four is probably a good group of guys, so you guys are going to have a great time. So
yeah, for sure, longtime buddies that I've hunted with before, so we're all looking forward to the trip, looking forward to getting out and hunting together.
Good
Huge
deal.
Bucket list type of hunt. So,
well, man, I wish you the best of luck, and. Yeah, I mean, as you and I talk pretty frequently, but this will be pretty neat for you to go off the grid and come back and wait to see some pretty awesome photos. Hopefully you all guys, hammer down on sheep and Ibex and just have a great trip, which I'm sure you guys will do. And like I said, they'll put you guys on good opportunity. It's just making it happen. And But the most important part is, having fun and having a good time. And I know you always do that on your trips. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. But yeah, hopefully looking forward to sending you that inReach message that says "Big Ram Down."
Yeah. I always look forward to that. I seem to get a lot of those from you, which I always enjoy. Which is pretty awesome though to get those messages from you. So. Well, cool, man. So just real quick after that, what else? Do you have any other hunts planned for the fall or anything else the rest of the year besides this?
Yeah, I've got nothing big or set in stone. As soon as I got back, I got a big work trip to go down to Kuyu for our annual biggest sale of the year. And then if everything goes right, hopefully I'll be in BC in December hunting lynx with my buddy Johnny. Another one of those hunts that got canceled due to COVID last year.
Okay.
And now that the border's open, that one's penciled in. So hopefully that'll go. And then might go chase whitetails down in Texas with some buddies. But this is the last big on the calendar trip for the year.
Okay. Yeah, and this year so far you've shot a big moose, which we saw pictures of that. You shot a bear, and you shot a sheep too, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I shot a pretty good doll back in August, and then kicked the year off right in January. Went down to Texas with a couple of buddies from Kuyu and one of our outfitter buddies, EJ Veros, and cleaned up on some big whitetail bucks and got to shoot some cull deer and some hogs and javelina, and then guided a couple of successful brown bear hunts this spring, and then rolled into the doll sheep. And then, as you said, killed a gigantic once-in-10 lifetime type of moose, and big 9-foot brownie as a bonus. So it's been a hell of a year for me for sure. Yeah.
It just seems like these years keep rolling. I mean, you just keep hammering just awesome animals and having awesome experiences. And it's pretty cool to it's cool. One thing about social media, I'll say, and it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, but it's cool to see people's success and how they do, on there.
No, for sure. Yep.
It's been pretty awesome. Always awesome watching you and your success, but also, your family too. I'm really close to your family and your wife and your daughter, and I enjoy seeing your family photos too, which I know is a huge part of your life. So it's pretty awesome just following you on social media. So
I appreciate that, buddy. Thank you.
Well, man, we'll close her down, but I'm glad we got a chance to connect before you went. I thought it would be cool just to kind of, discuss, things you're thinking about, stuff that I took away as maybe best practices and things maybe, help you on your guys' trip coming up. And yeah, super stoked to see how you guys do and excited to see photos. So
yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate your time as always, buddy.
Yep. And I think we'll have to make some plans maybe for next year to do something, huh? Sounds good?
Yeah, I need to get down there in one of those trips down to Kuyu for work and go shoot some pigs or something.
Yeah, and if you're down later this year, I'll have to try to maybe get up there. And I know you guys are pretty busy during that week on the sale, but it'd be good to just connect and see some old friends. So. Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I have to do dinner or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Tacos. I'm thinking shrimp tacos are in our future, right?
Yeah, our go-to favorite for sure.
Yeah. Well, sounds good, buddy. Well, good luck. Take care. Keep yourself healthy. And, let's connect when you get back.
Yep, sounds good, Lucas. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you later, man. See you, brother. Hey listeners, this is Lucas Paw, host of the RNA Outdoors podcast. Check out our website at rnaoutdoors.com to find all of our podcast platforms. Go listen today where you podcast. Additionally, leave a review and a 5-star rating. These reviews help boost our popularity and outreach. You can also follow us on our social media outlets, Instagram at Rod and Arrow Outdoors, Facebook, RNA Outdoors, and YouTube, RNA Outdoors. All links are in the show notes as well. We hope you'll pass along our channel to your friends and colleagues. Subscribe today and follow along on the journey.